Greetings to the House at large. I would begin by reminding you of the Eric Holt case of the States that was a rare expression of how flawed military parenting can be. A kid having nightmares even on the slightest thought of the existence of his parents. A sexual assault was told to be a medical treatment by the parents. What's controversial in this very statement is the phrase, medical treatment. But that is the limitation and a minute example of the bigger agenda, which forces us to brainstorm on whether the current parenting methods are good enough for a child's health or do we need the support of medical science professionals. When speaking of general parenting, the personal factor in terms of the family's status as a whole is of grave concern. As observed, parent-child relations are highly fragile and emotionally bound, which according to the proposition is a factor that establishes child governance. A typical family would obviously panic more when a child is sick, rather than being practical and finding a viable derivative to the problem, which is, if put simply, consult a professional. Parents' concern is not only governed by the illness, but also by the relation that exists. Take an example where a small pox is considered to be a menacing sickness. In scenarios like these, impulsive actions can surely prove to go wrong. And this is exactly the kind of situation that needs professionals on it. There is a very simple reason or a work of common sense for the same. Professionals are practical and enriched for the cure, whereas parents end up being hypochondriacs. Not offending the genuine concern a parent might have, but how far does that concern justify itself? Moodily taking it all in your hands or handing over the problem for a professional opinion. This is solely the reason capable enough to justify why the laws regarding child's health should be made by medical professionals and not by their parents. Usually observed is the fact that parents end up spending more money than advised. Focusing on stats, lower income parents can spend on an average $25,440 and middle around $44,560 in a lifetime on child health globally. However, that average is inconsistent. These numbers never saw a downfall and always favor upsurges almost every consecutive year. Presence of a professional as a middleman very obviously prevents that, or instead can cause a level more of their pockets bill. So this agenda stands double-faced on this subset only. Ignoring that slightly uncanny corruption factor, the fact is that professional carries a degree for a reason, be it in a country like the States or Yemen, and that reason is pretty much defined by their acumen in health and their expertise in a field of use, usually through years of research and study. Parents obviously take child health in their own hands, which is not only technically and practically wrong, but in the long run completely unsubstantial. On the contrary, blessed is the fact that professionalism reacts to what the problem demands. Not contradicting the obvious emotional support a parent can provide, but the challenge of a child's health is obviously on the battlefield with medical professionals. Pretty obvious because certain things are a debacle without an expertise. In this case, overcoming parental extravaganza and the assurance of healthcare. As the first speaker of the proposition, it was my concern to define the line of substance between parenting and professionalism, which is of course unbalanced towards the latter. My claim is not just a cerebral spark, but a carefully analyzed belief. Let's consider for a second the staple domestic conservatism around the globe. Progressively, the family picture is occasionally incomplete. Money is mostly less, and the assurance of the same sickness not happening again is nil. Making this with parental concern makes an appealing yet bland dish for the global organizations. Let me remind you of the report of NBC on February 2nd, 2017, where 2-year-old Ella Grace Foster died of pneumonia after the parents denied healthcare and treatment and attributed the death of their daughter as God's will. Following this was the case of July 10, 2018, where Kyle Swenson of the Washington Post publishes his article entitled "Newborn Dies Because Religious Parents Don't Believe in Healthcare." The infamous case of the tragic death of the twins, Jennifer and Evelyn Michelle, due to parent negligence. This creates a vicious cycle in the debate itself, because we do not only have faith healing parents but also poor parents and religiously motivated parents who still either can't afford the child care or accept the child care as it is. This cycle is to the knowledge of a very few, which is why only at a handful of places do we see that equal investment is done on vocational education and family security. That is probably the most viable way, because at the end of all failed efforts which the extra parenting yields lies a respite quite obviously at a desk seeking advice. Or as they say, repeated failure doesn't signify your incapability, rather it sets you on a path that is more advisable. That's experience and that's the solution. Thank you.